AC Valhalla is set during a very tense political climate. English kingdoms were fighting one another, as well as trying to ward off Viking attacks at the same time. Hence, maps are displayed in the game as battle plans. To help players visualize friends and foes, chess pieces were designed. The 3D modeling team first created items inspired by an early Scandinavian chess set, the Njevertapel, which was combined with the Lewis chess pieces. Recently found in Scotland, they were crafted out of walrus tusk and whale teeth in the 12th century. This design merged English and Scandinavian heritage into a unique item. As King Alfred is an historical figure, artists and modelers had a lot of documentation to help with his design. With pre-established features, age, height, backstory kept as accurate as possible, his appearance had to represent his royal demeanor, but also his weakened state. He suffered from Crohn's disease. This contrast was made through the design of his clothes, hair, and facial features. As one of the main characters in AC Valhalla, seen up close in multiple cinematics, it was imperative to design every detail meticulously. So much so that it took 10 days to design his hair. The castles of England were meant to be seen from afar by anyone seeking refuge. Except rulers didn't really account for their castles also attracting Vikings. All fortified areas in AC Valhalla were inspired by the castles the development team visited while in England. Portchester, Derby, Goodrich, Housesteads, the Roman fort at Hadrian's Wall. They nearly bankrupted the project just in the gift shops alone. The Castell Trefaldwyn in Wales inspired the fictional Corstow Castle, a fort in the Shropshire region. In AC Valhalla, castles are a telltale sign of great bounty to collect during raids, and lords will often retreat behind a castle's protective walls when fleeing from Eivor. Oh, they can run, but they can't hide. Well, I mean, they can hide, but, Eivor will still get them. It seems that Vikings and Anglo-Saxons could roughly understand each other at the time, as both of their languages sounded similar and had diverged only a few centuries before. To help actors during the recordings, the voice design team relied on linguists such as runologist Maya Backvall of Uppsala University. Uppsala? That makes me kind of happy, that word. Lines were then written in 3 versions, in English, for context, in the original language, Latin, Old Norse, Old English, and in phonetics for accurate pronunciation. Pronunciation, like that. Interestingly, it felt quite natural for Icelandic actors to pronounce Old Norse. Well, they wouldn't need a dictionary if their great-great-great-great-grandparents were around to translate, though that would be very unlikely. As the monastery of Ely had been destroyed, level designers and artists had to draw their inspiration elsewhere. More specifically, from the Saint-Martin du Canigou Abbey in France. Despite the construction being 2 centuries older than AC Valhalla's time period, it offered interesting architecture for the players to enjoy. Atop a hill for great scenery, a cloister to clear the perspective, and the bell tower to provide an iconic viewpoint. Finally, an underground tunnel was added, a unique feat perfect for a surprise attack. But some things remain accurate. Several eels were placed in the waters circling the monastery, a nod to the feature that gave it its name. Even warriors get some playtime. Indeed, it seems that Vikings played board games that involved throwing small objects, such as carved wooden figures. However, the team couldn't find any clear rules for these games. But all hope wasn't lost. The developers of Singapore, Chengdu, and Montreal studios all came together to invent new rules and mocked up their prototypes in a tabletop simulator. And then probably got really angry when one of them won and the rest lost. Everyone on the team could experience and enjoy the evolving versions of the Orlog 2.0. A first physical prototype was also made, using real dice that were painted over. The game of Orlog was reborn. And AC Valhalla's version of the Orlog was so loved by fans that Ubisoft partnered with Pure Arts to produce real-life Orlog sets. As longhouses were at the centre of Norse communities, it was only natural that they'd be at the forefront of AC Valhalla. Just like any true Viking, Eivor hosts feasts, plans battles, and sleeps in her longhouse. But what about its design? The art direction team first took a scouting trip to Lofoten, Norway, to immerse themselves in the land and bring back references. And chocolate. From these pictures, modelers and artists designed variations of paint patterns, carved animals, frescoes, and so on, for players to enjoy and use to customize their settlement. Anglo-Saxon longhouses, on the other hand, were designed with different materials, such as hay and lime, and less detailed engravings. Can't have them steal the show. I'm going to level with you now and prepare yourself. Vikings did not wear horned helmets. This dreadful misconception came from the Wagnerian opera The Ring of the Nibelung from 1876, but you knew that. Horned and winged helmets were at that stage part of the actors' costumes, a way for the warriors to seem more grandiose on stage. Ever since then, depictions of Vikings wearing big, horned helmets were in plentiful supply, and this wrongful image has persisted to this day. Beside the fact that horned helmets would have been anything but practical on the battlefield, it seems that the very few ones found by archaeologists were only used for ritual purposes. So you can use that fact next time you want to ruin a Viking's Halloween party. Now, you can't make a Viking game without an awesome longship. It's the law. After all, Norsemen are renowned for their boat-building craftsmanship to this day. To do it justice, modelers in Montreal built the dimensions and shapes, while artists in Singapore created 48 different variations of longboats with stunning designs inspired by Norse mythology. The outcome speaks for itself. A slick, clinker-built hull for hydrodynamism, shallow keels to sail in low waters, and even a removable mast to pass under bridges. Now set sail, and may you have fair winds and following seas. Don't forget your sandwiches. For players to recognize their surroundings easily, developers wanted to create a clash between the English and Norwegian maps. So Norwegian landscapes are covered with ice and snow, with little road to travel by land. While Scandinavia wasn't as barren as we're made to believe, the harsh and uninviting land depicted in AC Valhalla means to push the player towards England and continue Eivor's journey. To do so, level artists, tech artists, and level designers used the Lofoten Island as a visual reference to emulate its rough landscapes. Through shapes and outlines, the designers made the world feel treacherous. While England's flora is lush and lively, the grass is always greener on the other side of the sea. Stavanger, as with many cities in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, is based on an existing city, also called Stavanger. To reconstruct it, level designers and artists used maps, pictures and drawings by archaeologist Jean-Claude Gauvin as references, adding alterations for gameplay purposes. While not all the towns resembled Golvan's drawings, some iconic details helped give a Scandinavian signature to the towns and settlements of the game, easily recognizable by players. Narrow streets, docks, and a salient longhouse in the distance, they all incite exploration and the need for adventure. Every detail matters when designing a main character. Personality, backstory, mannerisms. Eivor the Wolf-Kissed must have a noticeable scar, and tattoos to represent past events, beliefs, and clan affiliation. A mood board was made with various references from Mad Max's Furiosa to Major Motoko Kusanagi in Ghost in the Shell, which allowed concept artists to create compositions, silhouettes, shapes, and concepts. Then the character modelers designed the details, hairstyles, tattoos, outfits, and even leather stitching, while animators focused on body movement and facial expressions. Finally, actors Magnus Brun Nielsen and Cecily Stenspill were cast to give Eivor a voice, tailored to her or his personality. It's alive! Alive! It's difficult to set oneself apart in a sea of Viking-themed media, but it was the challenge marketing and art teams faced when creating AC Valhalla's visual identity. Together, they designed logos and crests, selected fonts and colors and interfaces. As a result, 50 different logos were created for the brand to find the right fit. The 2 axes logo on the bottom right of this picture. They must have been exhausted. The turquoise color was added early on as a nod to the aurora borealis that illuminate the Norwegian skies. 2 axes for dual wielding form the A of Assassin's Creed. At their end, the outline of a Longhouse rooftop, with delicate engravings to underline Norse crafting skills. Finally, the faded grid in the background serves as a reminder of the Animus simulation. To replicate England's diverse flora was no small feat. The developers wanted it to be accurate and help players navigate the map. First, the world design team created a season map. England was divided into 4 areas, each allocated a season. Each season had its own variety of vegetation, from grass to trees, and its own humidity layer, which helped determine the type of soil in each area, lush, dry, or wetland. With these in hand, the level artists and designers could implement the right type of flora in the world and create different landscapes using rocks and trees. Therefore, one region could have diverse but coherent scenery, engaging players in exploring the map meticulously. Jorvik, now called York, is a great example of how Anglo-Saxon and Norse civilizations merged over time. Its multiple docks and narrow streets filled with exotic supplies welcomed international traders year-round. To represent this thriving hub, level artists and level designers used Coppergate, one of the city's most notorious landmarks. Known at the time as the Cup Street, where merchants sold handmade cups and pots, it was taken as a reference and extended to the rest of the town. With its small wooden houses and stalls tightly built together, Jorvik clashes with stone-built Anglo-Saxon towns. I don't know if you like rumours, but I do, and rumour has it York is one of England's most haunted cities. Built by the Romans, it's said that ghosts of fallen soldiers still roam the city, inspiring a locally brewed beverage, the Centurion's Ghost. Must be a pale ale. To emulate this mystical atmosphere, level designers took the opportunity to place an underground location, reusing Roman-era abandoned sewers. It's a way for players to walk around unnoticed. But what if those ghost rumours are true? They're not true. Ghosts don't exist. Sleep well. 200 unique weapon models were designed for AC Valhalla. After thorough historical research, modelling artists had the difficult task of designing realistic but spectacular weapons. Talk about a brain twister. Well, that's a good name for a weapon, actually. The flail was also added to the arsenal as a unique form of weaponry, even though flails weren't used by soldiers in battle but by peasants during harvest. To enjoy these weapons even more, new fighting styles were created. Players can now fight with a weapon in each hand, the dual wielding, or hit foes with their shield, sort of like a dual shielding. Shields played an important role in the Viking and Anglo-Saxon fighting techniques, and in AC Valhalla as well. Used in the game to differentiate clans and factions, each one has its own shape, paint model, colour pattern, and emblem. A new gameplay element was also added, the shield degradation. With each hit, an enemy's shield loses a piece until it's destroyed, and players can also now attack using their shields. Little known fact, it was common for vendors to walk around the battlefield, supplying clients with replacement shields and weapons. What can we say? Vikings were resourceful. though it's not a job I would have wanted. As it turns out, early medieval times were full of colours, from paintings and clothing to flowers and vegetables. To break the prejudice against this time period, artists, modelers and texturers made sure to implement vivid colours where they could. But as always, it's a fine balance to find between gameplay needs and historical accuracy. In some cases, developers chose to stick with one colour, despite historians' complaints. You should never mess with a historian. For example, pigs and carrots in AC Valhalla are pink and white respectively, although pigs at the time were brownish in complexion, and carrots, well, they had a wide range of colours, from white to purple. This choice helps with comprehension of the world, but also for consistency when certain objects are used in gameplay, such as the explosive red oil jars. Hence, one distinct colour makes items easily identifiable. Photogrammetry isn't just a very hard word to say, it's also an innovative technique for in-game textures. Determined to illustrate accurate surfaces, the graphics team travelled to England to capture every inch of stone walls and pavements, sometimes for 12 hours straight. A 3-metre wall would take 250 pictures, stitched together by specialised software. The final result is a 3D file with colours and depths, designed into tileable textures. These textures are then used by level artists and modelers to add onto buildings. To push the realism further, the graphics team also added uneven silhouettes with protruding stones, slate angles, and damaged areas. Honeymoon referred to the Scandinavian practice of giving newlyweds a moon cycle's worth of mead, which is too much mead. But honey was valued by Angles and Norsemen alike. It was then vital for the developers to represent the beekeeping practice as faithfully as possible. Depending on each region's real flora, fields of flax seeds, poppies and heather were designed and implemented by modelers and level artists. The flowers used as a seamless way to guide players through their environment. The beehives, seen from afar, also act as a natural marker. You might say a beacon, and are surrounded by NPCs collecting the honey. Sorry about the beacon thing. Level artists and designers used different types of forests to structure England's kingdoms. Oak trees, ivy and rowan in Wessex, heather fields, Scot pine trees, moss and willow trees in East Anglia, beech trees, bluebells and autumnal birch trees in Mercia, and tundra bushes, western gorse, dead and frozen trees in Northumbria. Ubisoft Sophia even recreated Wistman's Wood in Hamptonshire, using the pictures the development team took during their scouting trip. To do so, they integrated old, medium-sized trees, a smattering of rocks, a soupçon of moss, and a bit of fog to complete this ominous atmosphere. Creating an immersive world also includes the sounds triggered when Eivor interacts with her or his surroundings. Shown here are coloured surfaces that play a specific sound when the player walks on them. Yes, every item with sound and animation is labelled in the game's engine. A brown square indicates a wooden sound, probably because wood is brown, I'm not sure, while yellow squares signal a fabric-like sound. When the player walks on or touches one of these hidden squares, the noise it's linked to triggers automatically. But there's another side to this coin, and it's a sinister one. With this system, developers were also able to create noise traps that can reveal the player's presence to nearby enemies. Music is at the core of AC Valhalla's experience, defining territories and moods. To create an acoustic dichotomy between Norsemen and Angles, Norway's music borrows sounds from rituals and daily life, while England's music revolves more around the church. In total, it's 5 hours of music composed through the collaboration of Jesper Kudd, Sarah Schachner, and Einar Selvik. But the music doesn't stop there. To the uncontrollable delight of AC Black Flag fans, Sea shanties were also added to AC Valhalla. They're sung as Eivor sails on the Longship by none other than Einar Selvik, Skald Bragi in the game. Being the land of mighty gods, Asgard had to be scaled accordingly. To create this sense of magnitude, level designers played on heights with towers that reach up into the sky to meet the immense branches of Yggdrasil, the mythical world tree. The wolf, Fenrir, went through the same fate. Indeed, the infamous beast is 10 times the size of a normal wolf, thanks to the character modelers. To set AC Valhalla's Asgard apart, developers focused on depicting the myths of the Viking sagas, with doors to other realms, Well of Norns and so on, combined with glimpses of Eivor's past life and memories. A great shame it'll all be destroyed come Ragnarok.